All right, welcome to this edition of Morgan Asked For podcast. One of the more exciting and anticipated episodes of the year. College football is here. 4 days. It is a Tuesday, August 20th, about 9 o'clock here. So later this week, there is real college football all the way. So now essentially most days, and especially every weekend until the middle of January, there is college football on. Favorite time of the year, favorite topic, Iowa State and college football. Number one sport in Iowa, and is it even close, Trev?
Well, it's probably not close. The only reason it's even remotely close at this point is just because of Caitlin Clark at Iowa, but she's gone now, so it's definitely college football time. There's nothing that rivals it. We don't have a pro team in Iowa, so whether you're an Iowa or an Iowa State fan, this is the best time of the year.
Yeah, it's. I was actually talking a little bit, and I've kind of been doing some writing down things that need to get ready. 10 days for Iowa State. They do not play this week. Now, what's kind of really exciting is Georgia Tech, Florida State play in Ireland on Saturday, and that is 1 year from Iowa State, Kansas State playing in Ireland. So next year at this time, we'll be 3-4 days away from Iowa State kicking off the season, which will be super exciting and sad for me all at the same time because I would like to be there, but I won't unless something drastically changes.
Well, don't say no just yet. But yeah, you're right. That's a year away. That's pretty cool that they're going to be playing. I actually had forgotten about that. That college game day will be there just like they're going to be there this week or this weekend, I should say. I don't know if they're doing a show on Saturday morning or if it's Friday, maybe both. I actually haven't looked into it, but yeah, college football starts back up again Saturday. College game days back. We'll probably talk more about next week too, where you got college games Thursday through Monday,
Right.
but it's here. We made it through the summer. We made it through our dog days of the summertime, and no more tomfoolery for us. We're back in business now.
And this summer for us personally was different because we made a podcast every week. There was for a few times I did it by myself. There's a couple times you did it by yourself. And the days weren't it wasn't every Wednesday. It wasn't every Tuesday. It was kind of hit or miss. But I do want to thank Steve Shetler kind of for making us and pushing us. We have that weekly spot on his media network. So we felt obligated to get to use that spot and appreciate that spot so much. So it did make us talk and coincided with Caitlin Clark. That helped a lot this summer compared to previous summers.
Yeah, thanks to Steve Shetler. Appreciate his help. Caitlin Clark, certainly, she helped as well get through the summer. And then obviously the Olympics and all sorts of other things going on. But the summer flew by like it always does, of course. But, when you get in that June and July months, it kind of drags on, especially when you're a big football fan like we both are. And now here we are where we've got basically 6.5 months of straight of football. So best time of the year, we made it. And now it's time for predictions week.
Yep, absolutely. Football is back. We are going to win-loss predict Iowa State, both of us. And then we're going to pick our conference, Power 4 conference champions. And then the group of 5 automatically get in. And then we are going to predict the 12 teams in the playoffs, which coincides with the conference champs because obviously the conference champs are in automatically. So I got it written down here. I've got it all. I got the dates written. I've got everything here so we can flip back in my book here. I found this notebook. It's shiny. It's purple. It's weird. But I've got all these pages of just all podcast stuff that we can always go back and look at. Maybe we should do that. Go back 2-3 years. And it would be sad to see some of our predictions, I'm sure.
You should save that for a slow week or two where we got nothing going on, and you just go back and pick out a couple pages where you find something that we were totally right on or totally wrong on.
Yeah. Well, it won't be for 6.5 months now because football is king. But again, I want to thank everybody for listening. Recently, we went over 20,000 listens on our podcast since 2020. So 4 years and a few months here. And I just want to thank everybody that has been on this. Taylor and I started this, transition to you with Taylor's change of life, moving to Nebraska and everything. And then, Zach's been a frequent visitor. Brett and TJ and others, my brother and others have been on off and on different times and everything. Just want to thank everybody for that. And, this is fun to do. We've talked about this. This isn't a money-making deal. It is just for fun. And we both like talking sports and it keeps us in touch, actually, also just as friends and everything. We find out what each other's doing. And a big weekend for you. You are coming back to the Midwest and going to Zach Bryan in Minneapolis Saturday, correct?
Yeah, I'll be getting into Minneapolis Friday afternoon. Cody and Kylie are coming up. Brett and Sandy. We're all going to the concert there on Saturday night. So I've got a couple ideas for Saturday morning, lunchtime, for stuff for us to do. I don't know if we'll go to the Mall of America. There's a couple towers you can go look out at. Maybe a boat ride down the river type of stuff. But looking forward to it. Took your advice on downtown. We're actually staying east of downtown a ways. And there's a couple little good spots there that I think will be okay for us to pregame at. There's a Punch Bowl Social, I think, is a bar that it's got a bowling alley inside of it, ping pong tables, pool tables, all that kind of stuff. So it's right by our hotel. Hopefully that'll be a good place to go before the concert, and looking forward to it.
And the concert's at US Bank, right?
Yeah, the Viking Stadium, if that's what it's called.
Yep.
I
yep.
forget.
US Bank Stadium.
Yeah.
Yep. And so it's not exactly right there where Target Field is and Target Center. Target Field and Target Center are essentially attached. I mean, there's a street in between them, and they are right there downtown. US Bank Stadium is a little bit farther east, where you guys will be. It's not super. I mean, obviously you can walk there, but it's several blocks away. So, nope. Have fun. A little bit jealous. Obviously I saw him 3 times when he was in the Midwest before. 3 kind of, we saw him a Thursday, Friday, Monday. It'd have been kind of nice to spread it out to get to this one, but you can't do it all. I've done my fair share of concerts this summer, and you can't hit everything.
No, these are the last of my tickets that I bought back in July or August of last year. Again, we've talked about before when all the pre-sale tickets went on, you didn't know how many to buy, what concerts you could go to, who's going to come with you. And so this is my final little run of the tour here. So Turnpike Troubadours are opening up. Never seen them before.
Big. They're good. They're very, very good. We saw them this summer, as and we were kind of laughing. That was our first concert. It was in Indianola of the summer, and it was cold. It was unseasonably cold that weekend. And then Hinterland ended our summer concerts that I went to, and it was hotter than blazes. So we were cold the first outside concert, and then we were super hot the last outside concert. So we got the whole gamut.
Yeah, that's right. That was I think the first week of May when you saw him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yes, saw Josh Banstra and Stex, and I mean, just the same crew that you always see at each one of these. You kind of see the same people there. All right, now without further ado, let's go to our predictions. You want to start Iowa State or Iowa? It does not matter to me. What do you want to start with?
I can't remember who we started with last year, so I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
Okay, let's go Iowa first. They are ranked number 25 preseason, coming off 10 wins, coming off Big Ten championship game, but not scoring against a team that was ranked last year. New offensive coordinator, quarterback is back, ? Is healthy. I believe he's healthy now, but there's all kinds of speculation that he's not playing well. What does that mean in real life, in real situations? We don't know. He's not played very much football lately. He sat behind J.J. McCarthy his last year at Michigan, got hurt, didn't really practice at Iowa, got back in the summer, got hurt at the kids' practice last year, was never healthy. I vividly remember this. He was walking out to the coin toss last year in Ames against Iowa State, and he was limping. Now, he played well enough. They won the football game. And then later in the year, he got hurt, season ender. Deacon Hill comes in, and we all know what happened. Optimism is there. They've got a great team defense, 4, 5, 6-year seniors all over the place on both sides of the ball. Issues and everything, they don't have the Big Ten West to fall back on. Now, their 3 protected games, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, helps a lot compared to other teams in the Big Ten. But we'll see. Let's go ahead and get to it. They play Illinois State next Saturday at home in Kinnick. The Illinois State Redbirds, the I-State Redbirds, very similar to the Iowa State Cyclones. Illinois State Redbirds win. For me, I'm assuming the same from you. And I do think they're going to score a lot of points, because I think for the morale of Hawkeye fans, they need to. And you'll never hear Kirk Ferentz say it, but I think he has to have a conversation, I think very privately, with Tim Lester and say, go for it. And I think they need it.
They certainly need it. I obviously have this as a W as well. Like you mentioned, Illinois State start out the season 1-0. I don't know if they're going to score a lot of points. I'll believe it when I see it, type of deal. I hope they do. That would be nice. There is the hope factor with this new offensive coordinator coming in, but I could see this being a 27-7 type game. But I do think they start out 1-0.
So you don't think they go for it? I think they do. I think they throw the ball.
They can go for it all they want. It doesn't mean they're going to score.
Right.
But sure, it'd be nice to win this, 45-10 type of deal. That would be great. I just knowing how Iowa's been the past 5 or 6 years, I see this being like a 27-7 type of game.
Okay. All right. So you have a lot. I have a blow. I have 45-10-ish. I think they want to. Now, the quarterback situation throws it off a little bit, but everything I hear from the beat reporters, I listen to a lot of radio, I read people what they've wrote. Kirk Ferentz is a little bit different this year. And I believe there's a weight lifted off of him with Brian not being there. One, he doesn't have to answer questions about offensive coordinator and why the offense is so bad. Just in general, doesn't matter who the coordinator is. But then it was his son. And I don't care who you are. That it's hard to hear. He's a human. It is his son. He loves him unconditional, and he wants what's best for him. That's just being a human. And Kirk Ferentz, from everything I know, and I saw him this summer at an Iowa State player fundraiser, he is a 100% great human being. So as a human being, that just has to hurt inside. And now that situation's out. So refreshed, renewed, and just a little bit different for the good.
I hope you're right. I mean, yeah, Kirk seems like a great guy. Obviously, if your son's the offensive coordinator or whatever position on the team, you're always going to want to defend him, fight for him. That's the nature of family. So I do think it's going to help Brian not being on the team. But the first week, I've had so much hope for Iowa teams over the years. I just kind of know what to expect. It could be sloppy there for a while. Iowa could look good on the first 2 drives. I actually expect Iowa to look really good on the first 2 drives and then just to hit a wall like they do in these games. And that's kind of why I predict like a 27-7 type game.
Okay. All right. Now, game of the year here in the state of Iowa. This is going to be a big week. Second week of the year. Iowa State, if you do the rankings, they were like 29th or 30th, I believe, because they got votes. They were not in the top 25. So there'll be some shuffling. There always is after the first week. If Iowa State wins pretty handily, and we'll get to them here in a little bit, you could easily see them going into the rankings. So it definitely could be a ranked matchup. No guarantees. In Kinnick, just the one win Matt Campbell has is 2 years ago in Kinnick in a rainy, kind of wet field with Hunter Deckers. The 1 year they went 3-0 to start the year, and they only won one game the rest of the way. Every other year, he's lost that Iowa game and lost early games. I'm going to pick a Cyclone win. This is another year. Iowa State. This is where I think the quarterback issues might show. Iowa State's defense is good. It's not great. But with question marks, maybe they have a good game and they're trying to see both people. Brendan Sullivan is playing really well. They're going to play both quarterbacks, I believe. And Iowa State's going to steal one. It's going to be close. It's going to be a coin flip. 100% could be wrong. But I'm going to pick the Cyclone victory in Iowa City. Big win for the Cyclones to what they want to do for the year.
It would definitely be a big win for Iowa State. As you could probably guess, I'm going to take Iowa, but in a close one. I'm going to take Iowa 20, Iowa State 17 to get Iowa to 2-0 on the season. They seem to have Iowa State's number under Matt Campbell. And you're right, Iowa State probably does have the quarterback advantage. I wouldn't deny that. But the game being at Kinnick, Kirk having the experience, I'm just gonna play the odds on this one where Iowa does come out on top, barely.
Yeah, I mean, definitely could be 2017 the other way. I mean, I see no more than a 3-point win for the Cyclones. I think for Iowa State to win, I think it needs to be a little bit higher scoring at probably 30-27, just for Iowa State's favor. In those situations, kicker is going to be a huge part of that game. And everything I've heard that our kicker this year is very good, like we had last year and like we had 3 years ago. We don't have one every year. Iowa actually is a little bit questionable at kicker. At the end of last year, they made that switch at the end. He made it, so it did not matter, and then they never scored again. So he didn't have a chance to redeem himself, or if they were going to go with the new kicker. We don't know. We have no idea. But very close. You with the Hawkeye win and me with the Cyclone win. Game 3. This will be September 14th. Troy comes to town. Troy coming with a new coach. Their coach went to Tulane after Willie Fritz went to Houston. It's just dominoes fall. I don't think former Tumble Bulldog Trey Schwartz is on that team after playing at Iowa Western the last few years. So I know he would have loved to have been in Hawkeye uniform playing in Kinnick, but he is getting to play in Kinnick. As an Iowa kid, playing in Jack Trice, playing in Kinnick are dreams. Not everybody's able to realize those as Hawkeye or Cyclones, but you can go to UNI and get that opportunity. You can go to other schools and get that opportunity, and those are great spots. Hawks have way too much. Hawks win pretty handily.
Yeah, this is the game I could see maybe being sort of a blowout, but I do agree. I have got Iowa winning this game to get to 3-0 on the season.
Okay. Yeah, so that there's really not that much to talk about that one. September 21. Okay.
Revenge game.
It is a revenge game. Return kick for a touchdown, but did not. First time PJ Fleck beats Kirk Ferentz at Minnesota. I have that as a win. Kirk Ferentz takes the pig and leaves more timeouts.
Yeah, I've got Kirk Ferentz taking the pig as well. The timeouts we'll see, but no, I've got Iowa getting this one. This is a revenge game. This Kirk Ferentz has all the momentum, really, compared to PJ Fleck. I know that they got us last year, but this just feels right. It's going to be tough to go to Minnesota to get the W. Be the first road game of the year for the Hawkeyes, but I think Iowa gets it done.
All right, so you have them 4-0, and I have them 3-1 bye week. I like overall the timing of the bye week, 4 games and then a rest. With the next game that we're going to discuss, there's a little bit of me wish they would go ahead and play Ohio State that next week and then have the break, just because you know that Ohio State's going to be physical. They've said that this team might be the best team ever assembled. That doesn't mean they're going to win every game. Doesn't mean, but it's just personnel wise, talent wise, one of the best teams ever. At Ohio State on October 5th. Ohio State's going to be ranked really high. I don't know when they play all those games. I do think they play Oregon the next week, which might come into Iowa's favor a little bit there. Are they looking ahead in that? Is that going to be 2 versus 3? It's going to be one of the games of the year in college football that next week. Can Iowa do anything to disrupt Ohio State in Ohio Stadium, which has been a house of horrors for the Hawkeyes forever? They do not win at Ohio Stadium.
No, and they're not going to this year, most likely. This will be a loss and probably a blowout loss for the Hawkeyes. It'll probably be a bad one unless Iowa can force at least minimum 2 turnovers. Probably going to need 3 or 4, but minimum 2. This is going to be no contest. So Ohio State with the win here.
Yep, I've got that too. So you got 4-1. I've got 3-2. And I think this is a big game the next week, October 12th. This is one of this is the week of the year. So this is not going to get a lot of press. The press in the Big Ten that week is going to be Oregon, Ohio State. I believe Texas, Oklahoma are that week.
Ole Miss, LSU.
Yeah, they're that is the games of the year for the most part, October 12th.
It's the best weekend of the year on paper.
Yeah, a lot of arguments, and I'm sure you've heard this on Barstool on what happens if you have a wedding that day, and it's one of the top 5 wedding days of the year as well, and it's just craziness. That's a whole nother topic.
Reschedule the wedding, I would say.
I will say if you schedule a wedding in the fall, it's not good. All right, so Washington at home. Washington lost everybody, lost their coach, brought in Arizona's coach who had Arizona doing well. Don't know, obviously, what Washington's going to be. Traveling to new places, new conference, but defending, national champion, national runners up. I have it as a W. They don't have to travel west. It is in Kinnick Stadium. I do think the Hawks win. And I do think the Hawks probably win rather convincingly.
You and I are on the same page with this. I think this is a convincing win for the Hawkeyes. Washington, I think, is only returning like 3 or 4 starters from last year's team and a new head coach. Them coming into Kinnick is going to be an experience. I'm not one of those people that think the West Coast teams can't compete with the Big Ten teams. I don't think I think it's over-exaggerated. But in the case of Washington, like I said, they're returning just a few starters and a new coach going into Kinnick. I think it's just a bad timing for them, and I do think Iowa rolls in this game and gets the W.
Revenge from like 1982 Rose Bowl and 1991 Rose Bowl, I believe. Like they're 0-2 against some Rose Bowls.
Back in my prime, right when I was watching.
Yeah, no. Exactly.
No, but I do think Iowa gets the W there. They bounced back after a tough loss at Ohio State.
Yep. Next one. This is a tricky one. At Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State's going to be great, but any road game in the Big Ten is just, it's never easy. They're 1-1 going into this in the Big Ten road games. And I do think they come out. I think Iowa's a very good football team. You're seeing this. They're only losing to good teams. They're going to win all the ones they should win on paper. And I believe going into the year, they're only not favored in a game against Ohio State. I think they're favored in every other game on paper. So I have them winning against Michigan State. I think this is close. Maybe get a score late to kind of seal it. But this is at least halfway through the fourth quarter. I believe this is anybody's game, but Hawkeyes do prevail.
Yeah, this has like 16-13 written all over it. I'm going to take the Hawks here just because I hate Michigan State more than any Big Ten team there is. So, and that's got nothing to do with the Big Ten championship in 2015. I've just always not liked them. So, I think it's a close game, 3-point game, but I am going to take the Hawkeyes to get the W here just because Michigan State's so inexperienced. They've had so much drama over their program over the last 5 years, give or take. And I'm going to take the Hawks to get the win here in a close one.
Yep. I 100% agree that it's close. Might get a touchdown late to seal it. Now come back to Kinnick, kind of their kryptonite, but their kryptonite coach is gone. So I'm going to say the Hawks roll against the Wildcats from Northwestern.
Same here. The coach is gone. If the coach was
Yep.
still there, this would be a lot. This would probably be a loss. Most years of my predictions, this would just be the perfect opportunity for an L on the schedule that we don't expect. But since Fitzgerald's gone, I'm going to rack us up for a W here.
And Kirk is trying to get the demons to go to bed because he is recruiting his son. He wants him to be I don't think he's a scholarship kid, but he's trying to get him to come be part of the program. So he's getting Fitzgerald on his side. So there's another plus.
No, that's exactly right. So this one, I do see a W here. Like I said, most years I'd probably pick this to be a loss, but since Fitzgerald is no longer the coach, I'll give Kirk the edge here.
Okay, and now we're kind of continuing the Big Ten at home. This is a big game. It always is. A little bit different because Wisconsin has changed philosophies. Luke Fickell is now in his second year, so he's got another year of recruiting, another year of NIL buying players, just another year of everything. I believe they will be better. Home game. Iowans hate Wisconsin, and Iowa does win this football game, but this is another close one. This is field goal late, need a touchdown late to win, or hang on and hold Wisconsin, or Wisconsin misses. This is a close football game, but the Hawks do prevail.
I think you and I are on the same page for Iowa this season, it seems like, because I'm the same way. I'm going to give them the W here close. I'm interested to see what you think about next week's game on the schedule. But for this Luke Fickell's second year, I'm going to give Kirk the edge at home. If this game was at Wisconsin, I'd probably give it to Wisconsin. But since it's at Kinnick, I am going to give the edge to Kirk and the Hawkeyes to get the W here as well.
All right, so now we are the weekend of November 9th. However, they do not play on November 9th. This is a Friday night at the Rose Bowl, which has not been kind to the Hawks. Now, as a Rose Bowl game, they've not played UCLA in the Rose Bowl, and it's not going to be the pageantry. It's not going to kick off at 4 o'clock. It's not going to be 85,000 people. But West is where Kirk Ferentz teams go to die. I remember watching Tyler Sash and his team go out to Arizona State, and we were sitting in the basement of Kirk Spry's house many, many years ago, and it did not go well. Like, not at all. Like, really bad, actually. Now, I do not think this one's going to be bad, and I have no idea. I don't think UCLA is going to be very good this year. So that is the one thing that concerns me is if Chip Kelly was still the head coach there, I think this is almost a lock for UCLA win. But their new coach does give me some hesitation, but this is where the Hawks trip up and lose a game that they probably should win. I'm going to pick the Bruins to make the trip west a sad one.
Same here. I don't trust the Hawks going west. This is a game on paper they should win. UCLA returns hardly anybody. New coach Arian Foster, he butchered his opening press conference. But this is the type of game where Kirk Ferentz and the Hawks going west.
And on a Friday night, it's the whole thing's messed up.
The whole thing's messed up. And I agree, this is a game that if they played 10 times, Iowa probably wins 7 or 8 out of them. But this is the one. This is the slip-up game I see. And I've got UCLA upsetting the Hawks. They're in Pasadena, a game that the Hawks should win. You know, they've been winning. Their schedule is pretty favorable, but this is a slip-up game. I see it on the schedule.
Yeah, we've overall we are on this, like you said it just a few minutes ago, we are on the same page for the Hawks this year. The Iowa game's a coin flip. We both believe that. You know, Iowa State does something spectacular, they're going to win the football game. Iowa does something a little bit spectacular, they're going to win that football game. And then every other game, we're right on, even saying, hey, Hawks are going to win by a lot or Hawks are going to win by a little. Now, is that actually going to be what happens? Absolutely not. But we're on the same page on thinking it. The good thing about that kind of weird week and everything, you come back, travel, you don't have to come play right away. I think that's going to be an issue for a lot of teams is you go west, you play at night, you don't get home Sunday morning till like 4 or 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know what you're going to do with your kids. I always like to see them get right back to work Sunday morning. You get treatment. You get right back to work. You get them up. You see who's hurt, who's not. Get right back to film. And then you give them Monday off. That's what most teams do. I don't know what you do in those situations. Now, 1, they have the week off. And 2, they're playing on a Friday. So I think that does help. But I don't know going forward in the Big Ten, the teams going out west. And Iowa dodged lots of bullets here this year. But they're not going to dodge them every year going back and forth. And I think that might come into play in the Big Ten standings and the Big Ten championship. Teams going west and coming right back and playing. So bye week, November 16th at Maryland. So, you know, back-to-back games, West Coast, East Coast, but at least a week in between. Come back. Brian Ferentz is on staff at Maryland, so there'll be a little bit of just a circus with that. There'll be a lot of press and media coverage with that. But Kirk gets his team back. Hawks win.
Same here. Hawks get the W there. They bounce back after a tough loss, probably at UCLA. Again, I can see that being some weird game where they're down 20-10 going in the fourth quarter at UCLA, I should say. And they make some heroic comeback and just fall short, kind of like they did during the SASH year versus Arizona. And this was just a bounce back game. I have them getting the W and then going into the final week versus Nebraska.
And this is the weekend. This is Thanksgiving weekend. I believe it's Friday night, the 29th at 6:30. So I think that time is already set. I believe it's going to be going up against the NFL game. I believe the NFL went to that date as well. Maybe the NFL games.
You might be right. I'll check on that.
But ultimately, that does not matter. Matt Rule in year 2, they've got the number 1 quarterback in the country. They're getting better. They have unlimited funds. This is a very hard game for the Hawkeyes. And I have them with 3 losses. You have them with 2 losses. Either situation, they're in the discussion for the playoff. A 3-loss Big Ten team or a 2-loss Big Ten team is in discussions. And they're in the perfect discussions, and we're going to have that discussion here in a little bit, not being in the championship game talk with 2 or 3 losses. I don't believe. If the losses are different, if they lose to Iowa State and only have the one Ohio State loss, they don't slip up at UCLA, then you're in that championship game talk. But we'll see. I have Nebraska winning this football game. Iowa escaped last year in Nebraska with that field goal. They've escaped several times in Kirk Ferentz' tenure against Nebraska. Now, I believe 2 years ago when Cooper DeJean got hurt the final game, Nebraska came back and won the football game. So this would be 2 times in a row losing to Nebraska in Kinnick. And this, in my situation, takes them out of playoff talk with their 4th loss of the season. 8-4. I would say overall an okay season, but definitely not a good season, not a great season.
Like I've told you on here for years, 8-4 is kind of the bar. 8-4 is kind of the minimum, I should say. Every year, most years, I'd say if I can go 8-4 or better, it's a pretty good season. I've got them winning the game and finishing the season 10-2, but I actually have them missing the playoffs at a 10-2 record. And I think strength of schedule will come into that. We'll get into that here in a little bit once we go to our 12-team playoff. But I really think Iowa's going to finish about 9-3 to 10-2. I don't see 8-4. I also don't see 11-1 or 12-0. Just because I'm going to have to see this new offense and see if it really is a new offense or if it's just the same old. If I was scoring 12.6 points a game, then your 8-4 is going to be in play for sure.
Yeah, I just think everything we've been told, their punter is really good again, but he's super inexperienced. He's never played football before, American football. I don't think Torrey Taylor had either. In his first year, he wasn't as good as he was the last 2 years. And just they've been so good on defense and so good on special teams. And they will continue to be. They are not going to slip much. But if they slip 5 spots, 10 spots, and they don't get to 75th enough offense, they go from 100, let's just say 130th to 110th. Is that enough? I just think there's a couple games in there that they've won and passed that maybe this year they don't. I could be 100% wrong. I have no idea. That's why this is fun, and that's why we write it down. So
this is the best.
You are 10-2
part of the year,
and you are 8, and I am 8-4.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, and a 10-2, and we're going to discuss it here in a few minutes here after Iowa State. 10-2 is directly in conversation for the playoff. If you're a Big Ten team, you are probably ranked in the top 12 at the time, right after that game. And then there's 1 week of playoff games, and that will, of the conference championship games, which essentially are playoff games. That's what people, everybody wants these playoff or championship games maybe to go away. And I agree with that because teams that lose are going to get dropped out, and some of the teams just outside are going to go back in. But use the championship games essentially as a play-in game, as a playoff game. It's just a playoff game to get in the playoffs. Think of it as a pigtail almost on the playoffs. Now, there's some games, if it's Ohio State versus Oregon and Oregon's only loss is Ohio State or vice versa, they're both in. And that's going to be the hard part about that. If that situation happens where, Ohio State's number 1 in the country, Oregon's number 4 in the country, and the one loss is to Ohio State, win or lose, they're in. Both teams are in. It's just seeding. So they're going to play hard because seeding does matter. And number of games that you have to win matters. But both are in the playoffs. So if someone is a little bit tweaked or a little bit hurt, you've got to maybe ask yourself whether they play or not.
Yeah, this whole expanded playoff is going to change things for sure. Because now you can afford to lose a game.
Yep.
Before you if you lost one game, that might cost you the season. Now you can, if you're a really good program like Ohio State's or the Alabamas, you can go 10-2 and still make the playoff. So, do you have a game toward the end of the season where you have a bunch of injuries, like you mentioned? Maybe you sit some guys. You just know you have a little bit of leeway. It's going to change some stuff, but I like the expanded playoff. I think it's going to make it more exciting. It's going to give teams like our Iowa Hawkeyes or your Iowa State Cyclones on certain years a chance to make it. And that's going to be fun.
Absolutely. All right, let's go over to Iowa State. August 31st, Jack Trice Stadium, North Dakota. I believe they're the Fighting Hawks now, or are they still the Fighting Sioux? I think they're the Hawks. So I think the Fighting Sioux had to go away.
I'm not entirely sure on that, but I'm going to give Iowa State the win there.
Yep, it doesn't matter. It is not North Dakota State. We do know
yes,
that.
Exactly.
It's not the Bison.
Exactly.
The Colorado Buffaloes have the Bison, and that's
Yeah.
going to be all Dion wants, I think.
Dion's first two games are going to be all he wants, but yeah, no, you're right. You see North Dakota on the schedule, you're just happy it's not the Bison. This is North Dakota. This should be a good 1-0 start for Iowa State.
Yep, and then at Iowa, we've already done this. I have it as a win, and you have it as a loss. So, and we've already discussed that. There's no need to discuss further with that one. September 14th, a bye, an early bye. I don't know about that, but the way the schedule sits, everybody gets 2 byes this week. So maybe the good part about that is if someone does get hurt in that North Dakota or the Iowa game, it gets tweaked a little bit, it gives them a little bit of a chance to get back sooner, or maybe if they got hurt in camp, somebody always gets not necessarily season ending, but just a little bit here that's out 3 or 4 weeks, and now they only miss 2 games instead of 3. That's a good thing. September 21st, back in Jack Trice, Arkansas State. Again, one of those, I believe next year or the year after, they actually go to Arkansas State, but this year it is in Jack Trice. I have a win in my book. This is that game that Iowa State has struggled in. Louisiana lost in the COVID year. Last year at Ohio lost. This has been a game that's given Iowa State fits, but I'm going to give the Cyclones the win.
Same here. Campbell's had his struggles early. I think this is the season where he gets a little bit of redemption and starts out hot, which I'll get to in my further predictions. But this one's a W for Iowa State for me.
Yep. So non-conference is complete now. 3-0 for me, 2-1 for you. September 28th at Houston. Houston, new coach. Second year into the Big 12. I'm going to give the Cyclones the win because of that situation, because of the new coach, new system. He's good. He's going to win there, I believe, but maybe not right away. And it's one of those glad to be playing them in the first 4 or 5 games instead of the last 2 or 3 because they're going to get better. And they're still going to try to be feeling people out who's playing, some of that. I believe it was Matt Campbell's first year where they got beat by Iowa like 42-3. And essentially he just said, if you don't want to be here, go. And that happens in first years. And they played better late in the year. In that first year, wasn't a great season on wins and losses, but the culture was changing and it just takes some time. So glad to be playing Houston early in the year there. Win on the road at Houston, 4-0 from me.
I've got the win for you guys as well at Houston. So I've got you at 3-1. All the things you said, new coach. I think this is a prime opportunity for Campbell to finally get a good hot start to the season, because he always finishes good, doesn't always start the best. I think this season is one where he can start out really well.
Yeah, the schedule sets up pretty nice, just in general. If you just look at the schedule on paper, where everything's at, who you're playing, definitely easier start than many years or what could have been. So 4-0, 3-1, October 5th, Baylor at home. Iowa State Baylor seems to always have some weird stuff go on. Down in Baylor a few years ago, couldn't have tents. It's 127 degrees in the sun, and then it was colder than you know what out, and there was a fight. You know when Matt Rule was a coach. Just kind of always weird things with Baylor. At home, Baylor's trying to get back. They're wearing shirts that they're pay players. Well, so does everybody else. I think things aren't going great at Baylor right now. I think they're going to be a little bit better than maybe they were last year. But I think Iowa State's just, during this part of the season, on a roll. And another win and Jack Trice. Undefeated so far. And we're into October.
I agree. I've got Iowa State getting the win at home versus Baylor to get to the 4-1 record. So again, good start for Iowa State. You've got them at 5-0. I've got them at 4-1, but pretty much we're on the same path so far.
And here is, the week of the year. We talked about it. Big time games all over the place. Sneaky hard game for the Cyclones here at West Virginia. Their coach was on the first coach to be fired during the season last year, comes and wins 9 games, saves his job. I think he comes back a little bit. I mean, I don't think he's going to go like 3-9 bad, but 9 wins is a lot for him and West Virginia, where there are a lot of people that didn't know if he was the answer. Obviously, he saved a job, kept it. Was that a one-year wonder, or is it continued? This is a dogfight. This is coin flip. One play changes this game. I got to win. Undefeated, middle of October. Iowa State's sitting probably ranked at about number 15 right now.
This game I've got is a loss and a close one. As you mentioned, Morgantown's a very tough place to play. That's Pat McAfee's backyard. That's the reason I pay more attention to West Virginia probably than I ever did before, even during the days when they were really good. But I do have Iowa State dropping this one. Again, a good start to the season. I've got them at 4-2, but I do see this being the first kind of, outside of Iowa, of course, their first slip of the year.
And it very well could be. This is a tough football game. So I think we're on the same page on you have it going, kind of the coin flip or the plays that mean the game, win or loss. You have them going against Iowa State. I have them going for. But yes, this is a tough, hard-fought game. Win-loss. So 4-2, 6-0. Come back to Jack Trice, UCF. This is a sleeper team in the Big 12, or one of them, I believe. Gus Malzahn. Yes, this is year 2. Yes, they were a mid-major. Gus Malzahn is not a mid-major coach, though. And he's not building a mid-major program. He knows how to win and win big and win in the SEC. And he's in the SEC territory with talent. This is going to be a dogfight. This is another one that could slip up. Very easily go 1-1 these games. And you can coin flip which one you win, which one you lose. This year, I've got all the coin flips going Cyclones' way so far. There is a slip up coming, but it's not this week. Another win.
That's okay.
UCF.
I've got Iowa State winning this thing as well. I've got Iowa State winning this to get to 5-2. And yeah, I could see this being some 48-45 double overtime type game there in Jack Trice.
Yep. And then the second bye week, which is good. They just got done playing 5 games in a row. Catch your breath. as we talked about, on paper, that's kind of the lower end of the Big 12 teams, if you had to look. UCF maybe is kind of sneaking up into some predictions in the top half of the Big 12, but Iowa State definitely kind of has the bottom half of the Big 12 of who they play. Now, again, they only play 9 of the 15 other teams, so there's just teams you don't play. Iowa State does not play the Arizona schools or Colorado. So those are 3 teams do not play Oklahoma State. So in some ways that's good. I mean, I think you'd like to play Arizona State this year, and I think you want to play Arizona. I'm not high on them. There's some people that are predicting them to be pretty good. I'm not one of them. Oklahoma State's going to be real good. I think it's really good you don't play them. That would be, I don't care if it's in Stillwater or it's in Ames, that'd be a very hard game and maybe predicting a loss. But undefeated, now we're into November 2nd. Texas Tech, one of the favorites of the Big 12, one of the top 5 teams. I think Iowa State was picked 6. I think they were right above them, or maybe they're right below them, depends on who you listen to and their predictions. A team very similar to Iowa State. November 2nd, it could be 75 degrees and sunny and just a great fall day, or it could be not good out. You don't know. With Texas Tech coming up, I think you want it bad. But Texas Tech isn't Austin. The weather's not great in Lubbock. It gets hot, but it gets cold there too. It's in Jack Trice Stadium. That's why I picked the Cyclones. Still undefeated. The only reason I picked the Cyclones is it's in Ames.
I can speak from experience going to Lubbock, Texas. The weather's not great down there. In May is when I was down there, COVID year, I think it was, when I went and watched Cody Jinks, his first concert back after the whole COVID scare. It gets cold in Lubbock. Lubbock, that western part of Texas is not the nicest part. So just a little bit of geography there for people that think all of Texas is warm. It's not. There's plenty of cold spots there in the entire state. But I agree with you. I am going to pick Iowa State to beat Texas Tech at home, and for me to get to that 6-2 record overall.
Yeah, so 6-2, they're definitely probably ranked in the top 25. I have an 8-0, probably right around 15. Not a lot of respect because they don't have a lot of wins against great teams. The Iowa win's a really good win, and if Iowa does what they're supposed to do, they only have one other loss to Ohio State, so they're probably ranked right. I would say they'd probably ranked really close to Iowa State. Probably both about 15th would be my guess in this situation, 15 to 20. So playoff discussions happening. Definitely predictions are happening. You know, you get them up on the ESPN board or the CBS or the Fox board, and they start talking their win-loss and them out. You know, if they go 4-1, are they in? Are they out? I mean, that's starting to happen. It's just starting. It's not, you know, it's not a guarantee or anything, but the talks are starting to happen. Big game the next week. November 9th at Kansas, but quotation marks at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. We know what Iowa State does to Kansas City when the Cyclones go play basketball there. They're going to do the same thing for football. That is a weekend where the Chiefs play at home on Sunday, I believe. 99% sure of that, not 100. There's going to be more Cyclone fans in that stadium than Kansas Jayhawk fans. So it is a road game for Iowa State that's going to act like a home game. That's going to be the difference. Cyclones win, remain undefeated.
I've got Kansas in this one just because of their quarterback. I think that's going to be the difference in the game. You are right, though. Iowa State
doesn't play.
What's that?
I called it. He's hurt. He doesn't play.
Hey, you never know. No, you're right, though. Iowa State fans are going to travel really well down to Kansas City. We know that's just a given over the years. This one, I'm just going to give this one to Kansas. I think the quarterback for Kansas is just going to be a touch too much type of deal where they have one last drive type of deal. So I am going to have Kansas winning this game and sending the Cyclones for me to 6-3 overall record.
Yep, and I've got them 9-0. Approaching the top 10. Lots of talk of the Cyclones. Back home against one of the bottom teams of the Big 12. This team, I don't believe, is going to be very good. A little bit of a homecoming. Our linebackers coach, who we're going to miss. He was not the defensive coordinator, but he was kind of the defensive coordinator's right-hand man. Been with him a long time. Left to go to Cincinnati to be the defensive coordinator. But I think just the talent and the difference is too much. Back in Jack Trice Stadium, Cyclones win 10-0, first 10-win season in Cyclone history, and we're only halfway through November.
I've got Iowa State getting the win versus Cincinnati to get to 7-3. I'm not going 10-0 like you are, but I will predict 7-3 at this point.
All right. Now it's not close. Hardest game on the schedule. Hardest game on paper. Hardest game in real life. Tough traveling west. We talk about traveling west. We're also in Utah situation. We're talking about altitude. New place. I think going to BYU last year helps this situation a little bit. How far would Provo be from Salt Lake? It's not very far, is it?
Mileage, driving wise, it's probably about an hour given traffic, but it's, I don't know, 38, 40 miles.
Yeah. So it's kind of south side of Des Moines to Ames. It takes an hour to do that.
Something similar to that. Something similar to that. It depends on the traffic, what it is that day. But you are right, though. Iowa State getting to go out to BYU definitely helps because the elevation is
not stay in the same hotel, right? And then just make that drive. Probably stay in Salt Lake would be my guess.
Yeah, my guess would be what Iowa State would say downtown Salt Lake. There's plenty of hotels there near the Ute Stadium. So, yeah, if you can play down at BYU and Provo, you can play up in Salt Lake. It's all very similar.
All right, and this is a loss, and it might not be good. I mean, I think Utah's going to be really good. I'd have to go blow by blow with Utah's schedule, but there's a real chance that they could be undefeated as well. This could be if it's what I'm predicting, this could be game day. I don't know what other games that day are, but this could be for all the marbles in the Big 12 conference. We're, right before Thanksgiving, 2 undefeated teams. That's not happening very many places. And the Big 12 is obviously one team guaranteed. A lot of question marks on if they can get 2. Iowa State has the loss. There's only one option if they want to get to a playoff now with the loss at Utah. I'm assuming you have Utah winning as well.
I do. I think Utah is the class of the Big 12.
I do too.
They're the dominant program, and most people probably would. That's no disrespect to any of the other teams. They've just been so solid for so long. That's going to be a tough game for Iowa State, but I do have Utah winning that one and sending Iowa State's record for me to a 7-4.
All right, which in the history of Iowa State football is great. I have them at 10-1, historic, best in school history. Back home, Thanksgiving Saturday against Kansas State. We all know what happened last year down in Manhattan. Snow game. Iowa State ran all over them. Dogfight. I'm going to take the Cyclones with the win, but this would not shock me one bit. This could be, I think actually, Oklahoma State's going to have a say in this, I believe. But if Oklahoma State somehow doesn't have a say in this, Iowa State doesn't play Oklahoma State, so we can't do anything about Oklahoma State. But if Oklahoma State is not in play for this, Utah, Kansas State, Iowa State, I believe are going to be at the top of the conference, along with Oklahoma State. So I believe this game will determine who goes to the Big 12 championship game. Now, we were just talking about how Iowa, I think, wants to stay away from that Big 12 championship game. Iowa State needs to be in it. if they are 11-1 and don't make the championship game, I don't think they go to the playoff. Just strength of schedule, image of the conference. If they're 11-1 and don't make the play or championship game, that means I would assume Utah's undefeated or has one loss, and then Oklahoma State has one loss or is undefeated. So Iowa State's going to be obviously third in that situation, and under no circumstances is the Big 12 getting 3 teams. Unless you can make that argument that Iowa State is 11-1, and then let's just say Oklahoma State has one loss and then lost the second game, and somehow I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think that's how the Big 12 gets screwed. I'm just going to say it, but that's the reality of being in the Big 12 right now. But I have them beating Kansas State. So 11-1, and I have them playing in the championship game.
So most years, this is where I'd be picking Iowa State to lose, finish with a 7-5 record. I do think Iowa State gets the win here. I'm giving them an 8-4 record, which is really good, for Iowa State. That's a really good record, actually. Getting to the playoff, I don't think there's any way the Big 12 gets more than 2. I think the SEC is going to get 3, minimum 3, probably 4 and maybe 5 is the way I'm looking. And we'll get into that next. But anyway, I've got Iowa State finishing 8-4, which is a really damn good record for them under Matt Campbell. Another winning record, another winning conference record, really respectable. That game being home versus Kansas State, I think they get that one. And I think they finish with an 8-4 record, which I believe that would be the best under Campbell, right, for the regular season.
It would tie the most wins because they got 9 wins with the bowl game win against Oregon in the COVID year.
Okay.
And it'd be tied for the most regular season wins ever because the most wins they have is 9. Well, I shouldn't say that because they've had 9 wins and lost bowl games in the 70s. So they went like 9-3 or 9-4. But they won 9 games in 2000, but we won the bowl game. Won 9 games, won the bowl game with Oregon. So they've never had more than 9 wins ever. But most of the time, that 9th win has came in bowl games. So just a few times.
This feels like a good schedule for them. The only thing I wish is, it looks like they don't, of course, but it's like home away, home away, home away. Right. They don't really have a nice little stretch like a lot of teams do, where like 3 or 4 straight weeks at home. I wish they had that, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they start strong. I think they have a little lapse there, sort of in the middle, back third, whatever you want to call it. But I do think they lose to Utah there the week before the last game of the season, and then they come home versus Kansas State, and they get one of the bigger wins in Matt Campbell's career, in my opinion, to finish out the season to go to 8-4.
Right, and I have them winning that game to go 11-1, and I have them going to into the championship game against Utah, and I have Utah undefeated, and I have Iowa State losing again to them. 2 losses, both to Utah. So 11-2 going into bowl/playoff announcements. It's very questionable what's happening at 11-2 in that situation. If you have Utah undefeated, or put an ACC team in that situation as well, put Florida State undefeated, and Clemson's 2 losses are to Florida State. That's tough. Now, Clemson has a name way better than let's say NC State. That would be very much closer to an Iowa State situation. If it's Clemson, they're in. Names matter in this situation, and that's, you can argue and you can moan and you can whatever, but it's reality. Names matter. Now we're going to go to the playoffs. And Iowa State they are talked about. They are on every board. They're ranked. They don't know where they're going to be ranked because they just lost in the championship game. So it's how far did they drop? 11-1. Say they're 9th. I don't know. And they lost. Are they dropping out of 12? We don't know. We'll have that discussion here now. So first, before we get to our playoff teams, let's go to the Big Ten championship. Do you have both teams or you just have a champion picked? I actually just have a champion picked, but I can probably
I probably have the same matchup as everybody else does.
say
I have Ohio State.
I do too. I'm going to go.
I've got Ohio State versus Oregon, and I've got Ohio State beating Oregon.
Yep, I do too. So I think this is the same exact situation that happens in the Big 12, and I'm going to go ahead and go to the Big 12. I've got Ohio State beating Oregon. Oregon's 2 losses are to Ohio State. And in the Big 12, I've got Utah over Iowa State. Utah undefeated. Iowa State's 2 losses to Utah. So how about your Big 12?
Big 12, I've got Utah winning it. Who they're going to play, I don't know. Oklahoma State, they're just so consistent. I almost wonder if it's going to be them. But, going back to the Big Ten real quick, I do have Ohio State losing early in the season or kind of mid-season at Eugene.
Okay.
To Oregon. But I do have Ohio State winning.
So you have those 2 teams going splitting 1-1.
Splitting, yep.
And again, that's where it doesn't matter. If those 2 teams are playing in the Big Ten championship game, they're both in the playoffs. It truly does not matter. The only thing that matters is who wins and who gets that bye. So I shouldn't say it doesn't matter because it does, because the bye does matter on number of games. Now, I can make an argument that the best seed to be in the entire thing is number 5. And hear me why. And I think you know why. Number 5 is the best spot. So I think Notre Dame is in a situation that is great. They are not in a conference. Now, I call them pseudo ACC. It almost like they're going to be that second ACC team in most years if Florida State and Clemson aren't both in, or Miami aren't relevant. Here is why. They're going to play the 12 seed, so the lowest seed in the entire tournament. Most likely is going to be the Power 5 team in. So should be a win. And the 5 seed, I'm going to use Notre Dame, but it could be like an Alabama or a Georgia that just got beat by the other team in the SEC championship game. Both undefeated or 1 loss, doesn't matter. They're really, really good. They're the 5 seed. They're Georgia from last year. Didn't get in the playoff, but they could have won the whole thing. And not only that, they get to host a home game. So I think that's fun for your fan base, and I think that energizes your program. Okay? So now you win that football game. Now you go play the lowest seeded champion. For this argument, it's going to be the ACC champ or the Big 12 champ, most likely. But the worst one. So that could be, say the Big 12 kind of roughs up on somebody and Kansas State wins the championship game at 9-3. But they're in. Doesn't matter. If you can get there and win that game, you're in. So now you play the weakest team championship at a neutral site. They don't get to host a game. Their fans are happy, but they didn't get a host. So now you can win again. And now you're in the semis. You're playing the number 1 seed. And who knows? But that's 2 games. It's to get to the semis is really, really nice if you're the 5 seed, I believe.
Yeah, the 5 seed might, you're right. The 5 seed might be the best one. Obviously, it all depends on who you play, of course, but these as I was writing these teams down, the final 12, of course, you've got all the different conference champions, who gets the buys, and then it's kind of fun to match up who's going to play where just on paper. Like I was writing it down. I'm like, boy, that'd be a pretty cool matchup. Oh, so and so is going there. So and so is hosting the game. Like this is what's gonna college football is gonna explode this year. I mean, the ratings are going to be out the roof. Whatever you think of all this NIL, there's a lot going on with that, good and bad. We both know that, but the ratings are going to be. We're going to get some really big time games, I think, no matter who the final 12 are.
Right. What I'm most excited for is Alabama or any Southern team, LSU, you name it, going to Penn State, going to Michigan, going to Oregon, cold and rainy, going to Utah, say they lose or, and they've got a home game. Playing in the snow. Because those teams, I remember a few years ago, Georgia played at Notre Dame. It was the first time they were north of the Mason-Dixon line since 1970. I mean, they just do not travel. They will only do the neutral games in Atlanta or the New Orleans. They will not go north. They refuse. And now they can't, how cool would it be to have LSU come to Kinnick Stadium or, come to Wisconsin? I mean, just now Alabama is going, are they playing? They're going to Wisconsin. They're playing Wisconsin this year. Is that at Wisconsin or is that like Lambeau or something?
They are playing Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure you're right about that. If it's at Madison, I think it's at Madison, but I don't know. I'd have to look it up. That's a good question. But they are playing. I know that.
Yeah. So continuing SEC championship game, everybody's and I'm going to go Alabama. I don't see the demise of Alabama this year. They're still really, really good. And he's a really, really good coach. And he's starting to get a few recruits. I was watching the Little League World Series on ESPN, and at the bottom, they got like the number 2 running back. And they're getting players. That is a machine down there. Now, obviously, Saban was ahead of that machine. DeBoer is just a different machine, but he has won everywhere he's been without the facilities, without the backing. Now, if he wants something, he has it. There's no questions asked at Alabama. You want it. I saw a picture. He redid the office, Saban's office, where Saban's was like, it looked like like your grandma's house. And now it's modern and everything. And that's him. He's just going to do things a little different, more modern. But they're still going to be really, really good. At least for this year. Because there's still a lot of there wasn't just a ton of people that left Alabama. Because they still want to play for Alabama. And I don't think Saban's going to be out of the way as much as you think. He still has an office there. He's still around. Now, he's going to do all his other TV stuff and everything. But when you need a closer for recruiting or you need something, hey, think you can help? You need fundraising, you need something, you send the closer. And the closer's still Nick Saban.
Yeah. I don't see Alabama going anywhere. I think they're a surprise Final Four team. I've already told you I've looked to bet them. I mean, Kalen DeBoer has won everywhere he's ever been. He's inheriting a good team, which is not his fault. It's just the way the dominoes fell. And as you mentioned, Nick Saban's still right there in the backyard. So if you need a closer, he can come in and close the deal. I'm sure on a lot of this type of stuff. So I don't see Alabama falling off a map this year or next. Now, maybe 3, 5, 8 years from now, they might.
We'll see how it goes. But
because before Saban got to Alabama, they actually weren't very good. Those were the Brody Croyle, Tyrone Prothro days. Yep. They were pretty middle of the pack, or not middle of the pack. Maybe that might have been under not the right word, but they were, they were kind of an 8-4 type team.
Yeah, 2001, which I think Saban went there in 07, I believe. 06, 07, I think is when Saban went there. 01, we played them in the Independence Bowl. Think about Alabama playing in the Independence Bowl at about 500. It didn't happen. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, no, they're going to be just fine in my opinion. But this 12-team playoff, I'm really looking forward to it. And you mentioned one matchup, I just circled it right away because I already have it written down, and we'll kind of go through it. But I think it's like the lock. I don't know how to explain it, but I think it's like a lock game that's going to happen that we all want, and I do think it's going to happen in this year's playoffs.
Okay, so who do you have in the championship game and winning the SEC though? I got Georgia, Alabama with Georgia winning.
Okay, well, I didn't dive down that far, but I do have Georgia winning the SEC and being the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs.
Yeah, nope, not a problem there. And then the ACC, I have Florida State. I think that coach there is really, really good, and they want out, and they have to win, and they have to win big if they want any chance to get in the SEC or Big Ten. They need to just keep winning. Obviously, they went undefeated last year, and then holy hell broke loose, but Florida State wins the ACC again.
This is my biggest surprise of my entire 12. I have Virginia Tech winning it.
Who's their coach now? They've changed coaches here 2 or 3 times.
I don't even know. I just saw they returned 19 starters or something. I was like, well, Virginia Tech. You told me out last week. You're like, well, enter Sandman and all this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great. Now I'm sad that they won. I'm sad that they won the conference championship and they can't host again.
So I was trying to think of a surprise team that I could pick. And this tells you how much I know about Virginia Tech, which is very little, of course, other than they return a lot of starters. So I'm like, well, Virginia Tech is my surprise team. That's it. That's all I have to go on. So Virginia Tech is my surprise team this year. And that's my math and guidance behind it, which ain't much.
Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out. Okay, so Trevor, I'm just making a note here. So your Big Ten champ is Ohio State.
Yep.
SEC, Georgia. Big 12, Utah. And then the ACC is Virginia Tech. And the Pac-12 still does exist. They played each other 6 times. Washington State 4-2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Who knows on that? But yeah, I tried to come up with a surprise team, so I guess Virginia Tech is mine. But yeah, anyway, I know most people are picking Florida State or Miami, which seems or Clemson. Obviously, those should probably be the 3 favorites. But Virginia Tech is my monkey wrench in the whole system this year.
Yeah, and that's for the ACC and the Big 12. That is very much, I think, not as top heavy. Like I think the Big 12, like I could see Iowa State going, 7-2 in the conference and getting in the Big 12 championship game. They're really not in the playoff talk unless they win that game. And then they do, hey, one football game you can win, and then you're in. Doesn't matter. SEC, Big Ten, there's just so many schools and so many big names and so many big time programs. You're not going to somehow sneak into that championship game. You can get into the playoffs with 3 losses, but you're not getting to the championship game with 2 or 3 losses. It's going to be 0 losses or 1 loss.
No, that's exactly right. And that's why I had Iowa going 10-2, which is a really good record. But I think they're going to be one of the first 4 out of the playoffs, if that makes sense.
Right. All right. So now let's go to the playoffs. Now, I did not do the true bracket. Did you do the bracket?
I tried to.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I
I
did
did
not
it
do
correctly or
any
not.
of the bracket. I just have those 4 teams that are in. Now you could do the bracket kind of easily after that. But I did not. So those 4 teams are in. Okay. And I'm going to go kind of on, it's very obvious these teams are getting in. So the next most obvious one getting in, and this is just very much a Power 5 team gets in, or a group of 5 team gets in. So this is almost like a conference championship game. The winner of this goes. I'm gonna say it's Memphis this year. Liberty is going to be there. Boise State's going to be there. But I'm going to take Memphis as my group of 5 automatic qualifier.
Okay, and Boise State's mine.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people were picking Liberty, but Liberty got beaten that bowl game last year.
Right.
So I think a lot of people want to see like a Boise State or like you mentioned, a Memphis, one of those type of teams.
I think Memphis returns a lot of guys as well.
Mm.
They're one of those picks. I mean, I think Liberty, Boise State, Memphis, I think those are kind of the favorites.
Those like the top 3.
Yep. So no surprise there. And then my next team is going to be Notre Dame. If they are 10-2 or better, they are in the playoff every year because of their name and their escapability of playing in a championship game. If they're 10-2, they don't have a chance to lose that 3rd game. So they're going to stay ranked right there. Or if they happen to be 13 or 14, maybe that 9 or 10 team, like we just talked about Iowa State, they're ranked number 9 at 11-1. They lose to Utah. How far do they fall? Utah might be or Notre Dame might be the benefit of that situation and jump back up in. 10-2 Notre Dame is in. I think if they're 10-2 or better, they're automatically in. So I'm going to say Notre Dame is my next team in.
I've got Notre Dame as my 10 seed, so I have them in as well.
Okay. Now, really the biggest question mark in all of this is how many SEC teams and how many Big Ten teams. That's the argument. And then do the ACC and the Big 12 get more than one? I don't think it matters a whole lot what teams it actually is. Now, it will with the records and everything, but it's just the number of Big 10 SEC teams and then the number of the ACC and Big 12. Now, I kind of count Notre Dame as an ACC team because they play like 6 ACC games. So I almost classify Florida State, Notre Dame, which they play this year in South Bend, as both ACC teams. So I'm going to say that's 2 ACC teams in already. So I'm going to say no more ACC teams get in, just in general. And then I'm going to just go to my SEC schools that get in. So we have 1 with Georgia as a champ. Then we're going to go Alabama. We're going to go Ole Miss. And we're going to go Texas. So I've got 4 SEC teams in. Now, where you slot them, where you seed them, that's going to depend on who beat who in records. So that's why I said I did not make an actual bracket. But I've got 4 SEC teams, and I'm going to say 2 ACC with a asterisk. And then now the question is, we got Big 10 teams and Big 12 teams. How many SEC teams do you have? And you name your SEC teams.
I've got 5.
Okay, so you went more, and that's the discussion. So I'm going to say you're going to have LSU and Tennessee in there as well.
Nope, neither.
Oh, you got some surprise SEC teams then.
Well, these are my 2 surprise teams. Virginia Tech was the first one I told you about. So my SEC teams were Georgia. No surprise there. Texas.
Okay.
Ole Miss.
Yep.
Alabama.
Yep, I've got all those.
And then Missouri.
Okay. Yep, they're getting some high praise. Yeah, they're going to have opportunities, and that's what you want. That's the thing about the SEC. If you go out and win football games and you finish 10-2, 9-3, 11-1, you're in. The 9-3 is going to be a little bit of a discussion. That's going to be the discussion. Do you put 9-3 Missouri, or do you go 11-2 Iowa State in the situation that I had them in? That's the argument. I don't know what you do here. I think it depends on who you played and who you lost to.
Yeah, I think Missouri's got NFL guys all over their roster, especially on offense. I think that's going to help them a little bit. Plus, the SEC bias is going to help. So I've got 5 SEC teams for the first year. Big Ten teams, I've got 3. I've got Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. Like I said, I just have Iowa missing out on a few spots out there. But
So you got Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri.
Missouri will be the surprise team. We got Cook at running back. I think Missouri's a sleeper.
Okay.
Virginia Tech's just a random guess.
Yep.
My real educated guess of a sleeper team this year is Missouri.
Yeah. All right. And so then your Big Ten teams are Ohio State with the champ, and then you got Oregon and Penn State, you said?
Yep.
And that is the 3 Big Ten teams I have as well. Oregon.
I think Iowa just misses out. Michigan lost too much. And then after that, I don't know if it really matters. USC, I'm not seeing it this year.
Okay. So your 12-team playoff is Ohio State, Georgia, Utah, Virginia Tech, Boise State, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri, Texas, Oregon, and Penn State.
Yep.
Really, if you take out Missouri, those and you could say a Utah, Virginia Tech or not, but I would say Utah really has been really consistent since what's his name? What was the coach there? Florida coach, Ohio State coach, Urban Meyer. Since Urban Meyer has been at Utah, and Kyle Whittingham has been there, and it's approaching 20 years now. They've been super consistent, and they've jumped conferences, and it's never really fallen off. And this is now their 3rd different conference. Maybe they're 4th. Maybe they're in Mountain West or WAC. But they've bounced around conferences a little bit, trying to get up. But Missouri is really your only non-team that, obviously Boise State has been, you think about people 10 years ago, you saw Boise State stuff everywhere. Kellen Moore went like 48-3 as a quarterback of Boise State. And then you're talking some of the bluest of blue bloods in the sport. And that's the reality of college football. Now, if you look at my Big Ten teams are exactly the same. Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. However, I did not have Missouri, so I still have one more team left. I am putting the Cyclones from Iowa State at 11-2 in the playoffs because their only losses are to Utah. And Utah is undefeated and probably the 3 seed.
Yeah, Utah. If Utah wins the Big 12, they will be probably the 3 or the 4 seed. And if that happens to play out that way, that's going to be Iowa State's only 2 losses. So I get where you're going with that. I would love to see it.
Oh,
I would.
You know how broke I would be if this happens.
You would be broke because you'd have to plan out a lot of travel to go watch. Which, hey, you should. If this comes to be true, you should go out and watch all these games.
Yeah, because you're going to play in Arlington, and then you're going to be 11 or 12 seed. So you're going on the road to Notre Dame. Now, how awesome would that be? And how much money would that ticket be? Now, the travel there wouldn't be super expensive. Like going to Notre Dame, the actual getting there wouldn't be the problem. It'd be the hotel and the ticket to the game.
You'd have to really, we did this when we went there
You
7
stay a long ways away.
We stayed in Chicago
Yeah.
and then drove over. I mean, it's a long night after the game, and it's a 2-hour drive or more. I forget. It's probably at least 2 hours, but you could say, in the Chicago area, drive over to the game and then, drive back type of deal.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? It's a dream scenario. And I know I'm probably not right. And, but that's okay. That's what's fun about this time of year. And you could replace Iowa State with a Kansas State or an Oklahoma State very, very easily. And then, you take that team out and, maybe that team doesn't go to the playoff because that second place Big 12 team doesn't, has 3-4 losses, and then they're not in, and that's okay. And then that Iowa discussion is in. If they're 10-2 like you have them, then Iowa's very much more in that discussion. If let's just say Iowa loses to Iowa State only, and then only to Ohio State, and you're talking 10-2 versus 11-2, and you have a head-to-head matchup, that's that discussion. I mean, I think those two teams would be very, very much in a battle for one of those last spots. Or you get
absolutely they would be.
And you get in those situations where somehow Iowa State gets in. Or again, you can replace teams. Kansas State gets into the Big 12 championship game at 9-3 and wins it, and Utah was undefeated. Utah's got one loss. What seed are they? Are they still in? They lost to a 3-loss team. I mean, those are going to be the questions when you're not in the SEC and you're not in the Big Ten.
Yeah, if you're in the SEC or the Big Ten, you get a little bit extra benefit of the doubt, whether that's right or whether it's wrong. It's just the way it's going to work. So it's going to be fun, though. The 12 team, I hope it, and I know it's going to go to 14 probably, and I think it's going to be good. It's going to really open up opportunities for Iowa State type teams, Oklahoma State, Michigan State's on certain years, some of these other schools where, yeah, we know we're not going to win a national title. We know that. Like, it's just not going to happen. But could we get in the dance and maybe upset a team or two, get to the Elite Eight, the Final Four type deal? It's just going to be – I think this expanded playoff is really going to be good for college football. As much as people hate it and push back on it, I think in the long run it's really going to be good, though.
The only thing
because the same 10 teams are still going to win the national title, in my opinion. But
right, I don't think the national champion changes. Now, the only thing that I think can change in this situation is the number of games and how long the season is with injuries in the playoff. Let's say Notre Dame is the 5 seed. They get in, they win that game, but their star quarterback gets hurt. And then they can't win that next game. Or let's use an Alabama that their only loss on the whole year is at Georgia in the championship game. So obviously they're the 5 seed. They win that game, but their star quarterback gets hurt. And now they lose to the 4 seed Virginia Tech that snuck in. Now Virginia Tech can beat Alabama. That's where the long season, long games, number of games that these guys aren't used to playing, and these coaches aren't used to coaching this many games, that it might have a little bit of an effect on who wins it. But yeah, I think teams that can actually win a national championship doesn't change. It's Georgia, it's Ohio State, it's Oregon, it's Alabama, it's LSU. I mean, and then you can replace a couple teams each year because they're going to have a better year this year because they got 3 guys coming back or they signed a huge NIL guy. But what it is doing, it's what it's done in baseball where they keep adding teams to the playoffs. That many more fan bases believe they have a chance. Iowa, in my situation, by October 5th, already has 2 losses. their playoff hopes are done in the old system. Absolutely done. This new system, nothing at all. They are right in the mix. They still hold all the cards if they want them, or if they're able to. They want them. And it just brings that many more fan bases. And, if you get a chip in a chair, you have a chance. That's what you want. So that's what makes and then that just increases TV, and that increases money, which is the root of all evil of college sports. And that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother conversation. We're an hour and a half in. We could go another hour on that conversation. But that's the reality of today's world in college sports. We're long tonight, but that's okay. This is one of our favorite episodes. This is the episode that kicks it all off. It's here. Football is back. Football is here. Enjoy it. Love it. Live it. And favorite time of the year, buddy.
Yeah, like I said, we made it through the summer. We're here. Football is back. This weekend we got games starting Saturday. It's only one really big game in a way, but who cares? I was looking at the FS1 schedule. I think it's, Montana State versus New Mexico State or something.
Delaware State plays at Hawaii at midnight Eastern, so 11 o'clock here in Iowa. 11 when you get done with the concert, go back to your hotel room, turn on Hawaii, Delaware State, the Fighting Blue Hens, I believe is what their mascot is. Went all the way to Hawaii, watch it, bet on it. I don't know. Can you bet? I don't even know if you can bet in Minnesota. I don't think you can, actually.
I've got no idea, but no, it's fun to have it back on the TV like we talked about. And then next week, the real big week, and we'll get into this. We won't,
Colorado, North Dakota State is on Thursday, I believe.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's 5 straight days of college football, and there's a good game on every day. So that's going to be fun. We'll get into all of that, and it's just we survived the summertime. And now we're back into real football season.
All right. So just to recap, 10-2 for the Hawks for Trevor, 8-4 for me. Cyclones Trev had them at 8-4, and I had them at 11-1. So very similar, just flipped. As a Cyclone fan and a Hawkeye fan. So we did let our bias roll in a little bit.
That's all right. That's what we're supposed to do.
Yep.
It wouldn't be fun if we didn't. So no, this should be great. I cannot wait for next week. This weekend should be pretty good, but next week, man,
this week is the appetizer, or maybe
it's the appetizer.
Maybe even not even as good as an appetizer. It's a soup. Just a little cup.
Yep. I can't wait to talk to you next week about all the games. Next week's going to be just a full-blown, like we went an hour and 40 minutes here tonight. Next week could be just as long, just talking about all the games.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Again, thanks, Trev. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I know lately our episodes have went a little longer. Thanks for listening. We try to keep them to an hour, but on episodes like this, we go long. We could go for hours, but we do try to do this once a week instead of multiple times. It's just easier for us. So I'd rather go 2 hours one night a week instead of an hour 2 or 3 times, just because it works better for us. Football's back. Enjoy it. One last thing. Caitlin Clark set records. She's still going to be watched. I'm going to watch her. Even with football, she's going to be on a second TV. She's approaching MVP. I'm just going to say it. I think she's the second voting, the odds to win the MVP of the whole league, not just rookie of the year. They're better. She's better. They got a chance.
Yeah, the WNBA is not going away. We talked about it last episode. They're coming out firing. They're 2-0 after the break. I think they have a real chance to win this one on Friday or Saturday. I think it's Saturday, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Either way, they've got a real chance to finish the season strong. I think Caitlin Clark to win the MVP is going to be a long shot.
Yeah. She's a third.
But
Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson are the two best players.
Yeah. And that's right. That's probably the way it should be. She should probably be in about that third place position.
She should be first team all WNBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but and you go back to that last game, and we'll keep going here because it doesn't matter. We're not on a time limit. We don't have sponsors or nothing that we have to worry about. But the last game they played for Seattle, toward the end, there was controversy over what they're taking players out and doing this. And it goes back to my old philosophy, which I know people hate and will disagree with. I don't believe in shaking hands after a sporting event. I believe you shake hands before the event. After the event, go to your locker room or leave the field, leave the court. There's no need to shake hands after a game. All it does is cause problems. And I've been through handshake lines in junior high and high school as a player. I'm talking just peewee football in Iowa, and the things you hear in those handshake lines are not good. I'm totally against shaking hands after sporting events. I know a lot of people would disagree with me, but shake hands before the event, and then after the event, everybody goes to their locker room. Go your separate ways.
I don't completely disagree. I like to see it. I understand why we do it. It's a good thing, but I do understand that at times, especially on highly contentious situations, happen during a game, and it's hard to lose. And sometimes it's hard to win correctly. And that's what you're trying to teach in those situations, but sometimes it's just easier to not engage that situation.
Nobody's happy.
Honest, my son he's gotten a lot better, but he has trouble losing. I like that a little bit. I didn't like losing either. Should he be better? Does he need to? But what I try to tell him, hey, after the game, do what you're supposed to do. Kind of hold it in a little bit. We get in the truck, going home or car, whatever, punch the car seat 4 times. And then you got to let it go. That's, you got to hold it in for 15, 20 minutes till we get to the car. Then you can let it go. You just can't do it in front of everybody and everything else like that. And he's gotten much, much better. When he was 9, 10 years old, it was a little rough. But he's better.
No, I could see that, but young kid. Again, that goes back to my old problem with shaking hands after the game. You got one team that's super excited, you've got one team that's super upset, and why do we need to shake hands after the game? We already know each other. We've already met. Let's do it beforehand, and then after the game, when one team's on top of the world and one team's on the bottom of the world, let's just go our separate ways. But that's a new age philosophy. I know on my part that most people probably disagree with, but I'm going to die on that hill. I'm going to die on the hill of don't shake hands after a game.
Yeah, I don't completely disagree. All right, Trev, we're 1:45 in. Let's call her a night. It's almost 11 o'clock here. But hey, have tons of fun at Zach Bryan this weekend. You haven't seen him this year, have you? You didn't get to any of the other concerts, or you went to the one in Denver?
Yeah, we went to him in Denver, which was good. So this will be the second time seeing him this year, and I think fifth time overall.
Yeah. So enjoy, and I'm jealous, but you can't get to everyone. So
nope, that's right. So no, thanks. Great episode tonight, and then in the coming weeks we'll do our NFL predictions.
We still have 2 weeks. First NFL game would be September 5th, 6th area, that Thursday. I believe.
Yeah, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do my quarterback rankings 32 down to 1. We'll split up into 2 episodes. We have time for that.
Yep.
But that'll be our NFL topic type stuff.
All right. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week, Trev.
All right. Have a good night.